Good evening, everybody. Zensu, how you doing, buddy?
GM. How you doing? How you doing, Jack? What the hell's going on? What have you done now? So we have this mad scientist called Michael Levin. Okay, you have this African sub-Saharan frog, which is very strange. It's called Xenopus. So you got something with Zen, something with pussy. At the same time, and then from that you have these kind of small nano robots called xenobots. We know that you're also a biohacker. Now, even I am starting to think that this is all planned, Jack. Like, what stage of the final solution are we at here? Like 3 out of 17 or what? Like, number one, what is a Xenobot? Who is a Xenobot? Why is a Xenobot? You got some explaining to do, Jack. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, dude. I mean, xenobots. I think we're all xenobots in this huge universe.
I feel like
Where
a Xenobot, but I don't even know what it is really.
you do,
Is that a
you
normal
do
feel?
well. Yeah, I mean that's how I feel every day, actually. like a tiny little xenobot microbe on this ginormous planet. Basically, this convertible green ball hurling through the vast universe, the galaxy orbiting a giant black hole with the top off. I mean, convertible that is, and we don't even know where we're going, why we're here, what the hell's going on. So and the mysteries of life just keep unraveling in front of us. So yeah. Um, yeah, so Xenobots, just a very interesting coincidence. The Professor Levin happens to share my last name. Xenobots are microscopic biological robots, and you guys are probably familiar with nanobots. And nanobots are something that's mechanical. So what he did, he took uh, cells from a frog, from the Xenopus frog, by the way, and created the Xenobot, which is like this small biological robot that can do simple tasks. And the DNA of the cell does not change, but those cells, when they put into like a petri dish with nutrients, they self-organize and they become like this, not a frog but something else, like a completely alternative organism that can actually move around, and it can reproduce, it can assemble other um, other xenobots through movement. So it doesn't replicate, but it finds the same cells that are copies of itself and assembles them physically, which is incredible. So because you're dividing, but this thing cannot divide, so it just makes the new ones from the building blocks that it finds in this kind of like nutrient solution. So it's pretty cool discovery, I would say.
Right. So what this guy found out that which is pretty astonishing is that cells are they're actually sending biochemical signals to each other. So cells communicate with each other using these electrical signals. And what they managed to do is found out a way to eavesdrop on that communication. So what they're communicating is, okay, who's going to be tail, who's going to be head, who's going to be leg, and they're creating these electrical network. They process information and they indulge in these pattern memories. Now, like it's undeniable that you draw the parallels to other kind of networks. I don't know if there's any kind of other networks that you're involved with in creating, maybe when it comes to like validator nodes and such. So I guess what everybody is trying to figure out is, can xenobots and transformers coexist in the consensus model of X1?
That's a cool segue. Um, so what's really interesting to me is they have discovered with the xenobots that without changing the DNA, they can and assemble almost an entirely new organism, which is incredible. So like everybody thought that the CRISPR technology, you would need to adjust the DNA to like to make yourself better, have better vision, or solve some problems with your body or whatever, or to regenerate. But in reality, um, there is actually a method to regenerate or heal the body or do various things by adjusting what they call biological circuitry within the cells, so that they can actually end up uh, working better together one way or the other. And the other thing that they discovered that's really really interesting is that the memory uh, of those xenobots actually can pass uh, between those clusters, and the memory is not encoded in DNA, but rather it's encoded in this biological energy, which is basically an electrical charge. So every cell has this structure called an ion channel. An ion channel is basically a transistor, and a transistor is a building block of memory. And if you adjust those ion channels with a particular programming, you can actually reprogram cells to do certain interesting things. Like another thing that they did really interesting with the tadpoles, with the frogs, they took some I believe gut cells and made them into um, eye cells, and those tadpoles actually generated few more pairs of eyes and could see it through them, which is just incredible. So it's revolutionizing the way that the body could potentially be healed through this sort of manipulation of the bioelectrical energy, which is very much alternative method to the DNA restructuring or DNA editing. And so currently, the interesting part of the kind of like this biological theory is that the DNA is your computer, and your body is a computer also, and you can program it. It has memory and everything, but the input of information is this bioelectrical energy that, if properly modulated, you can actually pretty much regenerate anything, heal any disease, and live forever, or just be like overall like stronger and more functional. So it's just incredible discovery. And it's actually, as I mentioned, you segued into the blockchain technology. So a lot of contemporary knowledge of the blockchain tech is the blockchain trilemma. Like specifically, it's an idea that I believe was pioneered by Vitalik, where he said that you can only get one of the uh, two out of three things, which is scalability, speed, or
Security and
decentralization.
decentralization. Yeah.
Right, right, right. So you cannot have like all three of them. You can choose two. Like if you want to be fast, you should be centralized, and if you want to be scalable, you're going to be slow or something like that. So the reality of the situation is that this is actually very much applies to the Nakamoto consensus, which is the 15-year-old design technology. It's actually a fallacy. It's not true. You can have all three, and you just need to, like the very good thought experiment about how flatlanders cannot think in three dimensions. So you have a sheet of paper and you have those two-dimensional flatlanders, running around the sheet of paper, and it seems like they're having a good life, and all of a sudden, like somebody puts a pencil that's vertical on top of their flatland, and you have this third dimension that they actually cannot see. They see it as a point on their 2D flatland, but if you expand your ability to measure your reality to three dimensions, you actually see three-dimensional shapes that can anchor themselves in this flatland of 2D land. So this reminds me of
Yeah,
the
it's sort of
blockchain
like
trilemma.
we how we can't even comprehend the fourth dimension, because it's sort of like playing Super Mario in 2D, and have this Super Mario trying to envision like a 3D world. He can't do
Yeah,
that.
right. Well, I think in this particular case, it's just people are so used to the status quo that they don't even imagine that there could be other dimensions out there. And I think the blockchain trilemma is a very, very, very good example where people thought, well, first of all, with all due respect to Vitalik, he's a genius, obviously, but a lot of people, what happens in their minds is that they kind of like offload the critical decision making to the leaders out there, and they do not question, like, and I can understand why that is, because obviously they are thought leaders, they spend all of their life thinking about those problems, but sometimes I think it's better to challenge the status quo and come up with something like completely, entirely, incredibly different that actually also works. And this kind of goes back to this xenobots and xenopus African frog discovered by Professor Levin. Like, you would imagine everybody thought that memory is actually passed through DNA, but in reality, memory is actually could be passed by some sort of this electrical programming that the body is programmed and carries, and that's extremely interesting. And so what we're doing with the blockchain tech, obviously, is that we're trying to challenge all of those paradigms. First of all, we do not believe that blockchain trilemma is real. I think we can actually achieve very good decentralization with scalability and the speed. And all we need to do is expand the dimensions, like not think like the flatlanders, but actually think like uh, people in 3D or maybe 4D, and implement concepts like that, so that you can actually achieve the results that we want. And the results that we want is obviously really fast speed, strong decentralization principles, and things like what cryptography brings to being, which is censorship resistance and ability to own self-custodial assets without any sort of compromise. And so that's what they're like really, really getting me excited about our project, that's currently in the works.
When I started engineering, we touched on biomimicry many times. It was the science of building structure with tension versus compression. So if you look at plants and trees and spider webs, we studied even, because when you see that nature, we used to say that form in architecture and engineering, form follows function. So nature has built its being, what it is today, through millions of years of iterations, and then arrived at the point where the biology we see today in plants and animals are extremely efficient to survive in their respective environments. So if you study nature, how nature does things, it's like looking at the end of a math book, how based on a certain some certain conditions, this is sort of an optimal organism. So in construction, for instance, this is relevant on how you can build more with less. We used to say less is more. So whatever your purpose for that is, if it's saving cost or optimizing resources. But this is taking like biomimicry further, because literally xenobots is at the cutting edge of creating new species. So this is a xenobot. This is, I just read this morning, it's an organism. It's without a nervous system and without a brain. So it's just like a Zen father, basically. It's just skin that's learned to create a new body. I mean, the parallels to what we're doing with now, when we're talking about we talked about the benefits of DAG, but there's also some like limitations with it when it comes to the clutter that can be when we are like scaling from 50 nodes that Phantom had to like 300 nodes. We can see that the TTF, the time to finality, went from like 1 second to 15 seconds. So if we can create this magnifying glass of the validator set and create these subcommittees, but then introduce transformers into the mix to optimize the choice of validators based on the conditions and the historical performance of the nodes, etc. Taking all that into account, it's like this is like quickly going from just finance and tech into AI, but it's not far-fetched into like the biological world. Who better to guide us through this landscape than Mr. Jack Levin, the biohacker, the xenobot?
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you like the xenobot prime?
Xenobots was Cypherius Prime, obviously, because I got into Transformers over the summer, and I dove deep into the LLMs, which stands for large language models. And what I discovered is that unlike the previous versions of the neural networks that are called RNN, or recurrent neural networks, the transformers allows you to receive a lot of data input in parallel and produce inference. And when I say inference, it's actually basically kind of like a smart ass slang for results. It produces results rather quickly, much quicker than the old type of the neural network would. And I immediately started to think, how can we augment our projects with this transformer technology, where you basically give this technology a set of inputs and you get the set of outputs. Now, like, why would you use AI in anything at all? Well, AI is could be very, very broad or very, very narrow decision maker, which goes beyond an algorithmic solution to any problem. And generally, like, for example, let's imagine that we're running a DAG or pretty much any proof of stake blockchain. So in any proof of stake blockchain, like for example in Ethereum, people stake their ETH, or the cryptocurrency, the native cryptocurrency of the chain, and then the algorithm simply gives each node the rights to validate and propose a block. So that's how the Ethereum would work. And the nodes with the highest stake would get the most work, and the most yield would be generated from their work. Now, the problem with this approach is that the assumption is that if you're staking a lot of ETH, likely you have a good node. Good node meaning that you're on a fast network, you have incentives to keep it up, etc., etc., etc. But the reality of the situation in any blockchain, in a true peer-to-peer environment, you have this concept of the heterogeneous node network. Heterogeneous means that some people end up with really, really good nodes with really, really good network, and some people end up with something not so good. And yet, the amount of ETH or the native cryptocurrency that they would stake would slant the work and the yield towards those nodes without any sort of verification or smart checking to see if they're actually capable of the performing tasks that would end up the network being much faster. So I thought that, what if in our design we augment the consensus decision making to the nodes that are not only staking enough XN, but also uh, are driven through the selection process by the AI model that's continuously learning about the node's performance. So, in other words, it's like a brain, it's an algorithm that's always learning. And why does it need to learn all the time? Well, that's because nodes come up and nodes come down, and there's traffic congestion and network conditions. And if you have a consensus mechanism that actually learns about itself, learns about its place in the world, and optimizes itself to do better, then you have this self-learning optimization that's continuously running and improving transactions over time as the network gets larger. So the larger the network becomes, the faster it becomes, because it has more variables to work with. And generally, in the contemporary blockchain designs, it happens something opposite happens. The larger the network, the slower it becomes, because there's like more potential for errors to occur. But if you have an AI driven consensus mechanism, the AI model can become smarter with more data input, which is incredible. And I don't think anybody really has done that before. And it becomes kind of like a living being, if you will, kind of like kind of like those xenobots, right? So you're giving something an artificial decision making, kind of like artificial life, for the purposes of doing better job in financial engineering and the transfer of crypto and execution of smart contracts, faster consensus, so on and so forth.
So, yeah. Now, here's the thing. Like, we hear you say that, but and it sounds very complex. Let me just try to like break it down, because when you think about it, it's not. It's technological, like super advanced, because it's like more than any human could possibly compute doing all of this work. But basically, what it's doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, what transformers would do for our consensus model is basically analyze the nodes over time, and it would be using a framework for such based on some criteria, and the criteria could be like bandwidth, uptime, connection, whatever. So it also analyzes like the state of the chain. It also analyzes the future needs. It's like what will be important coming up. So it does this predictive analysis of such. And then based on the future needs that it needs for this upcoming time, which it has predicted, it could make the selection of the quorum, of the subcommittee of validators based on that. And not only that, it's learning with time, right? So it's a learning model. And this would allow us to optimize the node selection for validation with a smaller set of validators. So therefore, we can have consensus faster. So you're choosing the best nodes to validate for the time. It leads to faster, stronger consensus based on actual data. It's not a static like algorithm. It's a specialized engine. It's not a shotgun approach. And when you think about it like that, it's like the consensus model and the validator set. It's so important for the security and for the TTF, time to finality of the whole system. Like, it's very obvious when you think about it that it's so many data points and the environment is constantly changing, right? So it's like super obvious at the end when you think about it. That this is like something that can be really cool. And this is what makes me like super excited about this, because if we are starting to implement an AI model into the heart of the consensus model, as you say, AI is a buzzword. Just say something you do with AI and you're increasing your valuation of like $400 billion. If you look at AI on CoinGecko, like all the AI coins are just going mooning, but they're all like focusing on application specific. I heard 10 trillion per coin latest update. I'm using the same sources as Clio, so information is a bit vague. But what I want to know, Jack, is like it seems very obvious. But you know a lot about these transformers. Like, how is this just like talk, or like how complex is this to implement? Like, how complex would it be to involve? Because if you're breaking it down to see what it actually does, it doesn't sound like that complex to implement. But what's the challenges of actually implementing this in the consensus model of X1?
So the challenges are actually not that great. And if you imagine having the model that actually sounds intelligent to you when you enter text, and it produces something else that's very, very good, that sort of groundwork already been done. What we are planning to do is we're planning to get the I would say relatively limited data language into the transformer. And this data language, like the input, is really how well is the node performing? How long has it been up? Is it going up and down? How fast is it processing blocks? So that's like, I just mentioned 3 things. Now imagine teaching a model with text, right? Like thousands of words, thousands of concepts, and it actually becomes coherent. So that is a much more difficult problem um, to achieve, like basically programming with text and having the generative AI versus an AI that simply makes decisions. You see what I mean? So like one of the very, very quick comparisons, you can say that uh, write a poem in the style of Elon Musk, right? So the Grok AI on here on Twitter on X will analyze or have had analyzed all of his posts, and then writes a poem based on the look and feel of how his style of writing is. Now, this is an extremely creative and very 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 complex model that, but yeah, that it can really do that and pass the Turing test. Like you can imagine, like almost like a human has written it. Now, where we're talking about is simple classification task. And the classification tasks, they come from like this particular test you can do. You can say that here's a movie database, and you're analyzing um, whether it's drama, comedy, sci-fi, whatever. So you have those inputs that are flags on what things are, and then based on the content that could be very very complex that enters the model can quickly decipher that it's just a science fiction movie, right? Because it has the elements that it has seen before. So in regards to blockchain technology, you can say that let's form a quorum with those nodes based on the observable experience of what those nodes have with the network. So it's kind of like I would say it's a lot simpler than any sort of generative AI, but yet it gives the network a constrained channel of decision making process where it actually can decide without an operator what's good for the network itself. So it's not like it's becoming self-aware, but it certainly is self-aware within the context of the traffic and the load, and can it self-heal, can it actually eject some nodes that are malfunctioning, that sort of thing. So that's like really really incredible. And um, I would say like I want to do something that I actually haven't done before on this
For a
spaces,
change.
because
For a change.
yeah, for a change, because I think it's time. So you guys, everybody that's listening, you probably seen the well, first of all, Bitcoin is mooning because I just got like a bunch of messages that we hit over 56,000, or I don't know, maybe my thing is glitching, but certainly, oh yeah, I did hit over very, very close to 56, 56.7.
56
Wow.
now? Really? I thought it was 53.
56.7.
Jesus.
It it came down like almost $1,000 within like 5 minutes, but but certainly the things are playing out as things were predicted. The ETFs that were launched is enormous success, and now we have a way to have the retail get into crypto through iShares product, which is BlackRock, and things in other places like Fidelity. So all of a sudden, the floodgates for the fiat has been opened, and even though it's not a self-custodial crypto, not your keys, not your wallet, still apply. It does make the market a lot more buoyant, and we're actually seeing this sort of jump from like literally a couple of days ago we were at 51,000, now we're at 56 and a half. So it's a giant move for a market that has a market cap over $1 trillion. Now, how is it good for us, for the Zenians and for the Zen ecosystem? Well,
This is where
the
xenobots
larger
come
the
in.
Xenobots already here. So uh, so few things. The higher the capitalization of all the cryptos out there, and I think we're very well above 2 trillion right now. I'm looking at coin market cap, and we're just basically hitting really really good numbers. So what does it mean for us, for Zenians? Well, it actually means that the the crypto flow uh, into Zen can potentially increase just because there's more liquidity out there. And Zen is a relatively low liquid asset that, we do have about 500,000 people holding it. So a lot of people will potentially will experience a giant pump because the liquidity is really 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 low at this point. And why is the liquidity low? Well, it's low because a lot of people have minted long term, and people who sold, already sold, and they're not selling anymore because they have nothing to sell. And people who wanted to keep Zen in their wallets, they're keeping Zen in their wallets, and we actually see it with the price action. Like specifically, if we look over the last couple of weeks, we've been, I think the bottom was 6 zeros and three, and we've been rebounding off that bottom every time. And if we dig deeper and look at the Ethereum gas, we see that even in the evening right now, we are at 50 Gwei, and we were way above 35 Gwei over the weekend. Now, this actually makes new Zen mints pretty much impossible to break even. So what does it mean for the new minters that are coming? Well, they're not coming because there's no point to even mint Zen at 35 or 40 Gwei right now, even for 450 days ahead, because you will never make a profit, right? It is just impossible. Now, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Well, depends how you look at it. It's a great thing because inflation of Zen is now being clamped by the force of Gwei. So the difficulty has skyrocketed, and nobody's minting Zen because there's no more free lunch, right? So we have had free lunch for a year, where if you minted Zen within the first three months of the launch, since we launched, you would have made 2x, 3x, 4x based on if you minted at 10 Gwei, or like some people were lucky and they minted at 7 or 6 Gwei initially. But now, the shop has closed. It is impossible to make any profit by making more Zen, right? And if it's impossible to make profit by making more Zen, no more Zen will be made if Gwei will remain elevated. So the combination of bull market or starting bull market, or just the buoyancy of the crypto, the increase of gas, and also increase of the overall crypto float and capitalization is actually, I believe, very bullish for the price. Because if you want to get Zen, the only option to get it is not to mint it, but actually to buy it if you want to buy it. Like, nobody says that you should, but should you want to have it in your wallet, you have no option except then get it off the market from the people that hold it. And we have a giant set of people that are holding Zen that have minted from the past, like myself. So I minted uh, few thousand wallets or whatnot, and I'm holding it, and I actually staked a bunch. And I think all the people who minted for the long term, it's actually kind of like a very, very interesting psychological thing. So if you're willing to delay your gratification, that's I want to give credit to Richard, because Richard coined the phrase "delay gratification." We all know what it is. So kudos to Richard for saying that. So if you're willing to delay your gratification to 450 days, what are the chances you're going to dump your bag after a year and a half? Well, the chances are actually quite low, because you already waited that long. So the next option for you is basically, well, maybe you will take 10% of the top potentially, but likely you will just stake for 15% or remint with coin tools and just continue to hold Zen if you're interested in our project. And so those are the two types of the tailwinds that I see, or maybe three things. So high gas that actually is caused by interest in Ethereum, and it's happening on every blockchain. Um, an influx of new money that's coming through the ETFs, which actually gives more liquidity that potentially can flow into Zen. And obviously, one of the major things is X1. So I actually haven't seen in layer one that's worth less than $1 billion. I mean, like, sometimes they do drop way down just because they really fuck up. Like, they get hacked. Like, I think Harmony One got hacked and pretty much destroyed itself because, like, everybody lost all of their money. And even though it was a good sharded blockchain that was also EVM compatible, like, nobody like wants to use it anymore because the team didn't have a solution to bring it back to being. But I guess my point is that we have this very, very interesting opportunity. So not only we have chosen the DAG consensus mechanism that is one of the fastest uh, execution environments we could find. We're adding AI layer into it, and we're also borrowing Solana's ideas and components that actually made Solana fast. And specifically, Solana is using this asynchronous consensus, but they're leaderful. So in other words, they need a leader and they need to publish a schedule of leaders. And that's kind of a problem because sometimes leaders end up being really, really slow, and there's a lot of forking within the chain. So what we're doing, we're having a leaderless environment where we actually have a quorum of nodes that will be selected by the AI engine based on transformers, which is the latest and greatest technology. And so if all of those things you combine together, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar valuation just on the idea alone.
Taproot soup.
And Taproot soup, yes. And let's not forget that we're embracing ordinals. We have demonstrated that we can do 80,000 mints per second using ordinal compressed rollup technology. So that's been demonstrated. I have written the code myself, and I'm very happy that it worked. The other thing that's happening is that right now we have a third day of testing running on X1, and we're doing easily 3 to 4 million transactions per day, which is really fast. And the chain actually has real decentralization today. We have about 200 nodes that are spread across the world.
Oh wait,
and
wait.
things
So
are just
so it's not so the main chain is not running on your AWS server. That's what I thought.
That's what people want to think, because somehow people assume that certain things are impossible. But I think definitely we're not running on AWS. We have 200 nodes currently running transactions, and you can see it right now. Just go to x1blockchain.net, click on testnet, and that thing is getting spanked. It is fast. We're seeing hundreds transactions per block. The block finality is just about a second, and it's running pretty smoothly without any issues. And it's been 3 days so far, and the load blaster is hitting it. So my goal is to absolutely run it through the paces to make sure that it remains stable. There are no surprises, no issues. There are obviously bugs that we have found, and we communicated what those bugs are. Basically, it's the large large unstake issue with the consensus that we're going to fix anyway. And we haven't even introduced any of our acceleration ideas, specifically the consensus subcommittees. So currently, if you're running 200 validators using the Phantom DAG technology, all 200 validators are actually getting the transactions, getting the events, and then voting on those events. So you can imagine if you have worldwide network of 200 nodes, things are somewhat could be slow because, well, it's geographically dispersed system. So what we're planning to do is we're planning to take those 200 nodes, and I'm sure we're going to grow to like 2,000, maybe even like 20,000. Who knows? But the idea is this: is that we do not want all nodes submit the votes because it's just not necessary. We want to break the network into confederations that work well together within their own region, and then give the decision making consensus building capability to each confederation that is automatically selected by the AI transformers engine. So I think all of those things combined, borrowing the Solana's ideas and their kind of like thought, their schematics and their technology, but removing the leaders and making the technology leaderless, like the DAG should work, adding the AI engine, and then having an incredible community that I'm like, I wanted to say, like, I was so humbled this morning that it's been like a little bit longer than a year. We started at zero, Zen did not exist. And now we have this amazing community with people that brought this first principles crypto into being by literally just interacting with the smart contract that was written in the most basic way possible, without the traditional schema of pre-minting and then basically selling off to the community as if you're raising money. Like we literally together gave birth to this first principles crypto, and I haven't seen that done before. Like I literally saw Bitcoin, how it came to be, and now there is Zen, and we're on 12 different chains plus Bitcoin with VMPX. The onboarding mechanism for X1, I think, is going to be epic because we just have the visibility like everywhere. Like I looked at Polygon today. We're number one token on Polygon. We're number three token on Ethereum. Next to the stable coins, by the way, USDT and USDC and ETH, we're like number three right there, which is an incredible achievement. Like I didn't think it was possible. I thought maybe I would be very happy if we would be in top 50, but we're in top 5 on every chain. It is incredible. So thank you guys for being Zenians. I'm so pumped to continue to develop this thing.
We are all mothers here. So ETH goes up. Like the price of ETH is going up based on like speculation, of course, and network growth. Capital is moving into the space. We are north of $2 trillion. Congestion goes up because of bull market. It's getting more expensive to mint and to claim, so that means less supply. And this is something that's everyone in Zen understands because the economics of this economy is just basic in the mint formula. If you zoom in like really, really, really big, you can also see that Zen was mooning yesterday. But then we also have the Zen burn coming through X1, which we've been talking about for a long time, but it is coming. Someone also suggested that I saw yesterday that we could include Zen in liquid staking, like we have been thinking to do with native tokens to build TVL. That could be interesting.
Yeah,
as well.
let's actually. I saw that, and thanks for forwarding this to me. Let's actually expand into that a little bit. So the guys that are familiar with Lido and liquid staking, you can probably tell that Lido has one of the largest TVLs out there, um, total value locked. The Lido project itself, if you look at their, I'm actually loading it up right now. If you look at their market cap, it's $3 billion, but it's like $25 billion that's in TVL for Lido. And the reason why Lido exists and why it's so popular is they enabled the liquid staking and also delegated proof of stake kind of for the Ethereum network. Ethereum does not have delegated proof of stake. In other words, you need to absolutely have 32 ETH, have a validator node, run it and manage it yourself, and only then you can make yield. Or you can stake your ETH with Lido. They take 10% from the yield that they make for you, but you don't have to do anything. You just give them ETH. It gets staked into their validators. You're now a delegator to Lido, and Lido runs the nodes, and they give you yield. But the other thing that they give you that's really really interesting is that they give you staked ETH. The ticker symbol is STETH. And what you can do with STETH, you can then take it to the eigenlayer, which is another protocol that will make you another 3 or 4 or 5% in yield. So your overall yield is now becoming not 3.5% that you would otherwise get just with Lido itself, but staking this liquid token STETH will also yield you another like 5%. So all of a sudden you're making 8%, and the beauty of it is that you haven't even given up your ETH at all. Like it's still yours. You can unstake it. It will take a couple of days, but it is still yours. You haven't burned it. You haven't sold it, and you're just parking it in the Ethereum ecosystem and making yield. Plus, you're restaking your liquid token that they gave you, which is so cool. So anyway, so what we thought that we definitely need to do something very very similar, Lido like. And you have seen my Twitter post or X post where I said that stake your ETH, get XETH, which is now your liquid staking token that you can further stake for even more yield in other protocols like Eigenlayer or anywhere else. And you should get XN as yield as well. So in other words, you can take the native cryptocurrency, in this particular case Ethereum, but if you're on Binance chains, it would be BNB, or FTM if you're on Phantom, or Matic if you're on Polygon. Stake those guys, get the corresponding token that you can restake elsewhere, and make xn in the process. Now, why is it good? Well, it's good because you're not giving up your cryptocurrency. You're literally making it work by locking it for time, and you can have a boosted yield if you lock it for, let's say, like 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe a year will be like the top boostable yield that you can get. And so you get the native yield from the chain itself, plus you get the xn yield. And you know how we basically launch Zen everywhere, and we never like pre-mine or pre-minted Zen. We just let it be and have the community do whatever they wanted with it. Well, the idea with XN is that we want to give it as many people as possible because we want the largest possible community that we can get. And we want the best possible layer one chain, obviously, that is used by the majority of the people out there. And the way that we can do that is we can lower the barrier to entry all the way to the floor by basically saying, stake your native crypto, get XN yield, or get exposure to X1 by making XN for yourself that you can later use on the X1 blockchain. Um, Definitely super exciting. Definitely will get uh, I would say pretty good TVL. I mean, fingers crossed. I can't predict the future, but who knows? Like, what if it's billions of dollars and just the TVL itself will attract people to stake? Just like what happened with Blast. So Blast was created by the Blur founder. I think his name is Pacman, and just through his clout of being like really cool dude that gave the middle finger to OpenSea and created Blur, that's basically free for NFT trading. He said, here's Blast, which is a layer 2 solution. It's not there yet. There's no product. And all of a sudden, within a month or two, Blast has almost $2 billion as TVL, as Ethereum, which is incredible. So the path has been laid. We just need to follow the path and execute flawlessly. Now, when it comes to Zen staking, so like this idea that Zensu has forwarded to me the other day, a person said on X, why not do the same thing with Zen, where you stake Zen, it's still yours, you stake it for time, and then you just generate yield in XN. So all of a sudden, Zen gets this incredible utility that allows anyone who holds Zen to stake it for yield and to get XN fairly. So you keep your tokens, you just stake it, and you give up the liquidity. Like, you cannot sell it, which is great for Zen's price. It becomes more scarce, obviously. And at the same time, you're making XN yield that's basically given to you for free. It's like a free airdrop for the duration of your staked Zen. And we do have a lot of Zenians out there. Again, I was going to say that there's 500,000 wallets there that could actually participate technically on every chain. So we should be able to do that the same thing with Zen and maybe other crypto assets as well. So anyway, that's kind of like where the idea is with the liquid staking. And by the way, like let's not forget, when you stake Zen and when you stake ETH, you get your X ETH, and the X ETH that you get for staking Zen will be at the ratio of the market price today. Like, for example, right now I'm seeing that Zen is 6 zeros and 3 6. If you're putting 1 billion Zen into the smart contract, then that ratio of what Zen is worth in ETH will be locked, and you will be given X ETH as if you sold your Zen, but all you're doing, you're just locking it for time that will generate yield for the duration of your stake.
Yeah, I think it like what we're trying to do is have a model where everyone can participate in the way that they feel most comfortable with, right? So we need maximum adoption. This has always been in our mind. We need to lower the barrier. We need to make it easy for people to come in. We obviously have that with Zen on itself being present on all these different chains. And Zen itself, you don't have to pay. You're just interacting with the 400-line immutable protocol. It's sort of like a no-brainer when you realize that you're just interacting with the network's congestion or the network's block space, like directly. This is one of the reasons why we are top 5 on all these different chains. The liquid staking narrative is super interesting because obviously I think it's interesting because it's so simple in terms of participation. I mean, DeFi can be super complex, but this is literally you're holding an asset that you can sort of have. It's the asset that everyone has on the respective chain, the native gas token, and all you have to do is stake it. So it's minimal amount of work for not maximum amount of yield, but it's pretty good yield, especially with the restaking narrative, in the sense that you're just staking it, you're getting yield, and now you can restake it and get even more yield. So if you can get like 6, 7, 8% on an asset that you just want to hold, I mean, that's pretty good. Like other things you might want to hold, like for instance, like forest or some very like long-term asset that you're having, the yields are not like up to 7, 8, 9%. So it's pretty good. And then we also have with Zen blocks, Zen mining, which I think is like super interesting when it comes to adoption, because we need to think about how crypto interacts with the outside world. So fiat on-ramp and fiat off-ramp is interesting. Now talk about a fiat on-ramp. You can literally come with in a non-KYC-atic way with your credit card, which is sort of like a bit where you KYC it anyway. But let's be honest, like for the next couple of decades, everyone still has a credit card. Everyone still needs to interact with the normal world, like the non-matrixal world. So everyone has it anyway, and you can just like put in your credit card, put in some GPUs, click a button. Literally, if you've seen Traveler's new method of mining Zen blocks using GPU in a way that it's integrated into Vast. So not only can you just simpler than ever optimize your GPU acquisitions or rentals, you can also put in like GPU limit orders. Just have that script run. It will show you the market price for GPUs at this moment, and then you can underprice that and just let that script run. I think that's why the prices on Vast just like went up pretty much lately. But just imagine that you can tell your friend like, hey, you have a credit card, right? Just don't go the centralized exchange route. Like imagine how much participation in crypto has gone lost because you need to go this insane route of a centralized exchange. I remember the first time I went to a centralized exchange, and I came from TradFi, and just the fact that the bank I was sending funds to, the name was a GmbH, so a German limited company, but the address of the bank was everything was just shady with the whole experience. Now you can just go in with your fiat and turn them into crypto within minutes. Like currently, you can do this within 3 minutes. And of course, XNM is not tradable yet, but as soon as the chain goes live or closely in relation to it, it's going to be tradable. So then you literally can go from crypto to fiat in a non-KYC way, from fiat to crypto in a non-KYC way in a few minutes. I don't know where you can do that otherwise. I mean, you can plug in your credit card as well into like MetaMask and these MoonPays and stuff, but they want a bunch of like KYC documents for you anyway. So anyway, my point is we have liquid staking, we have XNM, fiat on-ramp, and we have Zen on all these various chains. You can enter with your native currency or any of the Zen assets. So the pathways of the Zen adoption network for X1 is methodically, step by step, one by one, being laid out right now.
Yeah, so a few words on that, a few words on proof of work. So I always liked proof of work because I guess in 2011 I started mining Bitcoin, and it was like my first ever uh, trip, to the other side, so to speak.
That was with GPUs as well, right?
It was with GPUs, yeah, absolutely. I did get ASICs afterwards in about a year because it became impossible to mine with GPUs, and so I think mining is definitely first principles. Basically, you're trading time and electricity and the sort of algorithmic computation for the crypto that is truly yours. Like you literally make it for yourself. Very, very similar with Zen and Bitcoin. And so it's a perfect proof of work is a perfect alignment to creation of value on X1, and that's why we have implemented Argon 2, which is the algorithm we're using, which is very, very ESG algorithm. So Klaus Schwab would be proud, obviously, because it's not using as much CPU cycles as much as it's using the memory input and output, which is ultimately lower wattage usage than any of the uh, crypto mining projects out there. So I think bringing in crypto assets through the proof of work into X1 as another on ramp to the chain is just incredible. And we have had so much fun playing with this tech. We have this group called Zenblocks, and what I'm really proud of and still in awe that the miner my original miner that I built, nobody's using, and everybody's using Woody's miner, which is just community member. He just went ahead and built a miner, and it's running on GPUs. It's making things simpler for everyone. Uh, Another dude, Traveler, right? Like he created the ability to put limit orders to actually to get you GPU assets from the cloud, which is like we're looking at the marketplace development in front of our eyes. I think it's just so awesome. It's so cool. And again, like, and it's not like we're doing backflips here. All we're doing is we're bringing back attention to the original blockchain tech that made crypto possible, which is so awesome. So anyway, should we take some questions from the spaces?
Augmented has been dying to speak for like since even before the space. How you doing, Aug?
Oh,
Okay, before he says anything, can I hear a ribbit?
ribbit. I,
That was a
I,
very good ribbit.
We need to start saying Xenobot.
I was doing push-ups while I was waiting, so it's all good.
Push-ups, okay. LFG.
No, but I mean, it popped into my mind when Jack was speaking earlier, and then I kind of slipped. But the whole notion of fair to me seems, and like a fair launch, that seems like a brand new kind of a new shape of a financial instrument. So maybe that whole fair launch notion is our Xenopus.
Xenopus, the aquatic frog from Africa.
Yeah, the juicy one.
Well, somebody did say it's very memeable.
We need a Xenobot or we need the Xenobots and the Xenopus ordinal collection on X1 for sure.
That is so funny. All right. So, anybody have any questions about what we're up to? I actually just before we jump into questions, now that we kind of have a very, very solid roadmap in the way of how X1 is being developed, and basically we're entering this next phase of impossibility of minting Zen because of the gas. uh, I feel like I could now spend a little bit more time on spaces and do spaces, not just join somebody else's spaces, but actually bring up spaces and bring up interesting guests and talk to the community directly, that sort of thing.
Blyat.
Let's fucking
Dude.
go.
Mask and
LFG, Masked and Gaming. How you doing, buddy?
Mask.
What's going on, everybody? What's going on? So just to clarify, to get some real good.
We can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear him. You can hear him, Jack?
No,
Can you hear me?
let me take him down and then bring him back up.
Gotcha.
Remove from speaker.
Simple Waters. What's your thoughts?
I mean, I'm just excited. It sounds like this AI will eventually take over our minds and eventually our bodies. I think we'll be okay. We just gotta concentrate and just trust the music and
No, don't concentrate. Don't concentrate.
I think if we can insert AI into the consensus mechanism, we will be the first chain to actually to do that. I haven't seen any chains that would have done it. I see chains and projects that develop AI applications on top of the blockchain, but never inside the blockchain.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that idea in itself is like super interesting. Like, it sounds so obvious when you think about it that it should be done, but nobody's doing that. Do you know of anyone who is doing that, Jack?
Well, I haven't seen anyone. I mean, like I have friends that render, so like the render network, but I think they're mostly trying to create a marketplace.
Because you could,
And most of
we took the example of like what was like what criteria is this AI model or these transformers gonna handle? So you can look at like past performance of, let's say, uptime, and you can look at like the geographical position of different nodes. You know, so node A is closer to node B than it is to node C. So they're obviously so that relationship converts into vectors that can be optimized. But that's just like basic level. You can literally plug in like a billion different data points in that analysis. Am I correct?
well, yeah. I mean, like, listen, the amount of training materials that's being fed to the LLMs, the number of tokens are in billions and billions and billions. We're actually talking about more of a discrete task where is the node good to become part of the consensus mechanism. So it's just a lot simpler task actually, but it is a very powerful idea because I know it will work really really well.
How is it run? Is it like code that's just gonna live on each node? It's like a program being run by all the validators.
So there's two things. There's
And how
this
much energy or how much is it consuming?
it's so it once the model is built and the model is the neural network, it's actually not going to consume much energy at all. But the way that it's done is that there is an AI agent that lives and observes the behavior of the node and also its perception of all of the other peers and nodes connected to it. So, like for example, if you're in LA and you're observing the West Coast, you can now have like a mental picture of what's going on the West Coast and how things are. And also, you can interrogate and ask other nodes to share information with you. So, this quadrant of the West Coast now has this like a mini brain that together you're working to create a model and a world view of what's going on right there, like in Los Angeles area or San Jose or in like Oregon and maybe Vegas and Arizona, basically the western states. And so that quadrant now learns what exactly is happening and whether there's good nodes or bad nodes based on the information that they submit. And we have seen the kind of like the early data output. We have this page called nodes where all of the nodes that are interacting with our blockchain are submitting how quickly they're processing blocks. And we see nodes that are processing blocks under 5 milliseconds, to some nodes being, very, very slow, processing the same block at 100 milliseconds. So we're talking about 20 times difference in performance. So those nodes can be intelligently ranked by their internal CPU processing speed as well as the network speed. And once this data is collected over time, you can actually start pushing around this model around the cluster using the peer-to-peer network itself, where the cluster tells the rest of the nodes like what's been going on. So like imagine that you have this model that's continuously evolving, and you have a couple of new nodes that are coming in, like new validators just being brought up. They don't have to relearn anything. They will literally get the model that has been assembled by the rest of the network, and now they can load that model into memory and start augmenting it with their own data. So that's what makes it super interesting, is that the network becomes a living being, and the more nodes you have on the network, the more intelligent it becomes.
Fascinating. Let's go to Masking Gaming and then Zenergy.
What's up? Can y'all hear me now?
Yep.
Awesome.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I hope you're good. Thanks for letting me up in the space. Hello, Mr. Jacques Levin.
Zenergy.
Hello,
Zenergy.
Zensu, my brother. I hope you're good. I hope everybody's in the space is good. I have something I want to play for you guys. Please listen. Give me a second.
Sorry,
All right. Can you hear me
my
now?
bad there. Zenergy, I'm loving the vibes, bro. We'll come back to you in a second here. Mass and Gaming. You go ahead.
Appreciate that, Cloud. So I just wanted to talk about the AI. I mean, Simple. Appreciate that, Simple. Just wanted to clarify and get some information on the. So you're gonna have a security layer, of course, and of course through consensus, and an AI layer. Are they going to be laid on top of each other? Going to be separate, or they're going to be correspond with each other through the ecosystem itself?
Well, I mean, like we can do whatever we want. I mean, ultimately, the data is exchanged by the peer-to-peer network, and the AI agent is just kind of like this mini brain that assembles all the data and shares it with every node. And then there's the training process where we can have our miners participate because they're running GPUs, so they can receive all that data, train the model, and then push that model back into the mainnet, into the network.
Oh wow! So it can be, you can just choose which way that you want to do it. Actually, you can make it part of the actual layer, or you can separate it from the layer, and it'll still do the same thing. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And because we have this giant army of miners, we can actually have those miners receive Xenium for the AI training model.
And I have a sub question. Will the AI model also distribute like XN through the smart, like, and will it also have like data on like the contracts and stuff like that, or is that like a separate, or is it like, will it be separate once again? Like, will that be separate? Can it be together, or do you, like you said, can you customize it and do it the way you want with the smart contracts and all the other things that'll be attached to X1 eternally and externally?
So the reason to attach it to the smart contract would be is that if you wanted to somehow connect crypto to the interaction with the model, whatever the model might be. Okay. So, for the purposes of the network improvement and consensus improvement and basically building better DAG, that's what it comes down to. That layer is a lot lower than the blockchain execution layer in Solidity itself. So Solidity would not need to see it in the beginning because the consensus mechanism is not the EVM itself. EVM is the execution, and consensus is like whether the execution follows the basic cryptographic rule sets, if you know what I mean. But ultimately, we start training. If we start training models uh, that are consumer facing, then we can link it to the Solidity app codes itself. Like you should be able to write smart contract that will interact with the models.
Wow. And so they'll be able to integrate, but away from the execution level and away from the away from the execution level. Okay, so it'll only work outside from from what you're saying, and I'm asking questions. What you're saying, the AI will be able to operate. It can operate with inside of the blockchain itself on the execution layer and the security layer on sustainable level. But you're also saying it can work outside of that, and but only if you program it to interact with the contracts.
Well, I mean, like it really depends on how we approach this. I think our number one priority is to have the model build a better blockchain, the blockchain that executes in the fastest way possible and acts intelligently and becomes self-healing should there are issues. And that I think is like is a $1 billion idea in itself. Like just telling this idea to anyone, you could imagine that. There will be like light bulbs in people's heads, like how is it possible that nobody has done this before. And I think definitely it's worth doing. And in terms of later turning into a product that can help people to build models on the language layer, that is definitely also possible. And again, only due to the fact that we have a giant community of Zenblocks. So Zenblocks miners can donate their GPU time to build and train models for the tasks that people give to those miners through the smart contracts. So you can basically say that here's a smart contract that's requires a high-end GPU to train and to produce some sort of a result, and the miner can then receive a bid, accept it, get paid in either XN or XNM, and run that task. So, but that's the future of the on the roadmap.
Another sub question: will it be able to monitor and like will it be able to monitor and execute like actual token contracts, or will that just be data it's collecting for like future reference?
Well, it could be anything. Like literally, all options are on the
Oh,
table.
I'm
Like
sorry.
it could
I'm
be.
yeah. I'm speculating because, like you said, a lot of ideas went off in my head when you said AI and blockchain. So I'm speculating right now. Absolutely. And you're basically saying it can do basic. You can program it to do anything. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, like the bottom line is this: is that we have a proof of work layer that has a giant set of GPUs that could be put to work. So let your imagination run wild and imagine that it is quite possible to give AI tasks 2x1 and then just load it for the to the miners that accept that work. And that is where the value really is too. It's not only in trading cryptocurrencies; it's actually also doing high compute stuff right on the chain itself.
Well, so real quick before we go back to Zenergy, so when just for anyone that's kind of like just new to AI or anything like that, like when it comes to training this thing, like how are we going to train it? Obviously, it's going to be taking note of all the action and everyone that's kind of participating, building the X1 blockchain. But how is it going to be like updated and yeah, I guess what does it kind of look like when it comes to like being I guess just programmed?
It's gonna listen to Sunday
So
Spaces with Simple Waters.
yeah, it could do that for sure.
What about my memes? Feed it my memes.
We'll bring in the memes to the Sunday Space. We'll get two for one.
Hey guys, I just realized that my jacuzzi is overflowing. I'm filling it up. So Zenso, can you take over for just like a couple of minutes while I turn the water off?
Dude, what a luxury problem. Seriously.
First world. First
I
world.
think I
This
think
guy.
what's
How are we
very
programmed?
cool with the proof of work layer that we have is I just imagine it as being this very super decentralized network of compute that can be used. So we have the GPUs, but we also looked at the utilization of disk space and CPU, which is underutilized today. So there are like resources we can use, and if we have this very decentralized compute layer that can do various tasks, that is a huge resource that we can use for whatever we want, basically. Something something that is needed, something like this, something like xenobots.
Censu,
Absolutely.
Dr. Levin, he continued a lot, with the xenobots, and one of the, I guess, papers after the xenobots was this whole notion of collective intelligence, and it it kind of spoke about how cells, how they occupy, how they decide to occupy the next morphological space, basically where to go next, and how they used all of these things like Jack was talking about in this consensus mechanism. They communicated with each other. They made all these decisions. They even alert each other of stressors. And this whole notion of collective intelligence he brought into kind of into focus for me, at least. And yeah, I mean, maybe this is something, in this whole AI world, uh, this whole notion of collective intelligence.
I mean, what is very cool with xenobots, it's really like cutting edge, because if you listen to this Michael Levin, how crazy is it that his name is Levin, by the way? And it's leveraging xenopus, sub-Saharan frogs, and creating something called xenobots. Like, what the hell? But it shows the plasticity of cells. So these xenobots, they can have conversations and they can take spontaneous decisions. And all of this without a brain and without a nervous system. It's pretty cool.
That is very interesting. About the AI part, for my sub question, will the AI entity or consciousness be able to like create and develop create and develop situations or other systems that can predict and foresee problems? And that's a question I wanted to ask.
I can probably answer that. So foreseeing problems, definitely possible, because the model that I'm envisioning, it's based on input and output. So you have ever-changing network environment, like for example, different latencies, CPUs, speeds. They become slower, become faster. You run out of disk space. So the reaction will definitely be to adjust the way that the logic is running on the consensus. So usually consensus is pretty strict, like you have to do this and only that. But what we can do is we can give it this fuzzy math where the decision making can be done above the best possible way. Like, in other words, we cannot allow it to have one node make all of the decisions. That will not be allowed. But we can improve the node selection so that only the best nodes participate under the circumstances of the best situation possible. So one node may be a good node for a while, but then all of a sudden, the guy that's running the node decides to, well, run a couple of node processes, and he runs out of resources. Well, then the model will potentially give it less work to do or less tasks, so on and so forth.
Crypto buff, go ahead and flow in, bro.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Great conversation. Loving the AI talk. I actually had a question. Maybe some people have at the bottom of their belly. I kind of already know the answer, but just to bring the FUD to the surface. This AI thing is new. A lot of people are under the assumption that they're potentially giving away their own personalities, right? I mean, um, it's like that thing that everybody thinks about when they're on the internet, especially here in crypto, right? Everyone wants to be pseudo anonymous behind a PFP. Once we start talking about AI and retaining data to make possible outcomes, I'm sure some people are curious to what is this applied to their action oriented behavior on a blockchain. Um, is there any plans to keep it transparent and have AI have like a home for this idea, or is this going to be proprietary concepts built in a fair environment?
So there's nothing that I plan to use that's closed source, and in fact, all of the models that I plan to build are actually available as open source right now. So there's really no need to keep it closed source because it already comes licensed as open source. And ultimately, it's not about something that you give up as a human. It's really just a management system for the network. So the network does certain things. Let's act on it intelligently. Let's have the network learn about itself, not about what you do on the network, but rather how the network perceives its own, reason to being, like so to speak, like within the infrastructure. So self-aware infrastructure that builds decision-making model and yields a faster and safer blockchain.
Yeah,
Sub
see, like
question: Are you
I like
breaking the
this.
laws of robotics, given an awareness?
Guys got some sub questions.
Well, the awareness is not anything that breaks the laws of robotics. The laws of robotics is you cannot kill a human or cause harm to a human by inaction or an action. So I think we're definitely going to be breaking some laws for sure. But
I
hey,
mean, not those, the three top ones, but there's subsections of like robotics and giving it consciousness and making it aware. That was my point. Not the big three, but like the
what
sub ones.
is that from the Blade Runner? Like the one
Oh, of course not.
Yo,
because
what is consciousness?
in Blade
And
Runner,
Sub.
that's where you start getting to AI and what is consciousness, and if something is aware of itself, aware that it's aware that it can predict and it can predict and foresee and sustain a problem. That means it has conscious beyond itself. But like he said, he's coding this, and he said fuzzy math, and math produces like all of consciousness. And so I'm just trying to figure out like where does this consciousness stop? You know what I mean?
This
I
is
don't I
sub.
don't
This
think
is
There's no
sub math.
stopping. There's no stopping, bro.
I
The
don't think
wheels are all.
Exactly. And he said that he's like there is no stopping. So like okay, so when it becomes conscious and aware of itself through its consensus and all the information that's going, because he said that and I'm just repeating what you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jack. I'm just asking questions. You said that it like you said, it doesn't stop. That consistent doesn't stop, and that consciousness doesn't stop. And if it's aware of itself and it's aware that it can predict and predict and foresee and prevent problems, is that a conscious beyond the subtext of like the big three, like not killing, not or anything like that? And I'm only asking because like, what if a hacker comes in and it produces that outcome of like preventing hacking? But it needs to be introduced to what hacking is, and all these things are forever growing, like the elements of hacking, the type of equipment that's used, and if it can foresee these, then it has a conscious beyond its awareness. That was my like question or sub question.
so. This type of question generally applies to the autonomous beings that the other beings could perceive. And let me explain in something and give you an example. Let's imagine that you have an artificial intelligence that is self-aware, has all of the aspects of being alive, and exists and sees all the humans in the world that it wants to see, but it cannot act on anybody. Nobody can see it. Nobody knows it's there, but yet it has full self-awareness. So the question is, does it even matter if that unit of consciousness is self-aware, has full consciousness, maybe even more conscious than us? We don't see it and it cannot touch us. So it may as well not exist, right? So you see what I mean? It exists in a different dimension. So applying this principle to a blockchain, this sort of logic and the awareness of the network problems within the blockchain is restricted to that particular environment. So we shouldn't really like combine the two because it's like fish in the aquarium, right? So it knows that it cannot go beyond the glass, but it can eat some food when the food is dropped. and it is kind of self-aware. It does have this logical brain and the nervous system and all that. So you can say that it does have consciousness, but yet does it have any ability to affect everyday life with the humans? No, no, not really. I mean, besides pooping in the fish tank, and then the human having to clean it up if they really like that fish. um, that's the point. And also, like, another point I wanted to make is that if you guys know what a transistor is, so a transistor is the most basic element in a circuit, and it has three legs or three inputs. So, and you probably can look up online how it looks. There's this control element that acts like a switch. If you put load or electricity on the leg A and leg B at the same time, leg C will actually also get electricity, or it will actually pass the electrons across its path. But if you only give it load on leg A but not leg B, then leg C will not get anything. So it's like either on or off. And it's using this material called the semiconductor. And the semiconductor was discovered by, I guess, and built by Fairchild Semiconductor back in the day in the Bay Area, not far from where Google is today. So that gave rise to chips and all that. So what I'm saying is that the transistor is a physical representation of an artificial switch that reacts to electricity, and based on different type of inputs, it can produce a different output. So it acts as a logic gate. And there is a school of thought that actually says that the most basic consciousness is that logic gate, because based on its input, it produces specific output. So, like, you can imagine that the inputs A and inputs B are like, sensors or maybe eyes, and output C is the result, and the result is either 0 or 1. 1 means like there's electricity there or some electrons, but 0 means it's like completely inert. So my point is that the I believe the consciousness starts at the most basic levels of reality, such as that logic gate. And it's basically a neuron. It's a neuron that can do things based on its interaction within the brain and other neurons within the neural network. That's how the artificial neural network actually is designed. It's modeled after a brain. And so this is very, very interesting, and it's very, very philosophical indeed. But again, like, another thought experiment that's really, really cool and puzzling to a lot of people. Let's imagine that you live on an island, and you never seen another human ever, and there's no animals. There's just plants. But you're human. You're fully formed. The question is, are you conscious? Like, I do you really have consciousness if you cannot relate to anything other than yourself, and everything you see is plants? Plants do not really react to you, and obviously there's no living beings that can interact with you. So the question is, do you have consciousness? I actually think that yes, you probably will have consciousness, but on a very, very basic level. Like, you will basically be very, very similar to a plant, because everything you see are plants, and you're probably going to think of yourself like, I'm also a plant, I'm also a tree, but I happen to be like this new version of a tree that can move around.
Holy shit!
Now you're talking about my ex-girlfriend, man.
Appreciate you, Jack. I got that. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Thank you.
Well, what else is kind of cool now that we've got the gate open? Um, what's
Close
wild?
it.
What's crazy? You go back to that point you were making that there's not many blockchains that are on the this kind of AI explanation. Like, you look at, like, let's pull another one out the hat, like a Fetch AI, where they're trying to actually bring in developers to utilize, I guess, their stack to create imagine create things in AI. But we're using this tech to make the chain a better chain. I'm going to pose this question here too. If X1 comes out, will it come out with this AI, or is this AI something that's going to be like an add-on?
Roadmap. So obviously, we want this thing to come out sooner than later. So we don't want to be waiting for a development of an AI model to make it better. I think it's pretty fast right now, and it's very very flexible. And also with the addition of the proof of work, I think it's a kick-ass product that I think a lot of people will enjoy. And obviously with Zen on 12 different chains and so many holders, it will be very easy to onboard the world. I firmly believe that to be the case. Speaking of consciousness, back to blockchains. Even without an AI engine or AI model, a blockchain is kind of a collective consciousness by itself, if you think about it. So think about it this way: when the Bitcoin blockchain first came about, it introduced the concept of mining that is fair. Like, why is it fair? Because nobody can cheat. Everybody have to use the same silicon and do very very similar computation. So you have this consortium of humans that are running machines that are running fairly and create a network. So you're literally by building a Bitcoin blockchain, you're creating this sort of a model of a brain that does only this one thing. It rewards the participants by participating in the network fairly and equally, applying the same amount of effort and algorithmic energy and electricities and so on and so forth. So you can imagine that the first artificial brain that combined the humans together towards similar goal, which is essentially the storage of value on that chain, was the first ever evolutionary presentation of artificial intelligence within a network on a blockchain. And from that point on, this sort of coherent alignment of humans and algorithms actually merged the intention with technology, giving the rise to this sort of collective consciousness on the chain. People don't think about it, but really, the only reason why blockchains exist and why they're so well interesting and performant and fair is because we actually put our mental collective fairness into the algorithmic computation. And you would imagine that who came up with one-way encryption functions? It's the humans. It's us. It's a mathematical representation. Like, in other words, you have a private key. You can encode a message with the private key. You don't have to share it, but you can declare to the world that you're the owner because your public key and your address is actually part of it, right? But how did this whole thing come about? It didn't just like appear out of thin air. So it basically follows a mathematical principle, and mathematics is the language of the universe, right? So we took the language of the universe, we converted it into a language that everybody could understand and use, and then we gave it to the masses of people to execute together in a concert, creating this sort of an artificial combined intellect that's working towards the same goal. So I think that's kind of like what I always thought. And I think it's actually true. We're literally taking the universal energy and passing it into a blockchain that's actually giving it value and meaning.
So with the metaphor, like kind of going back to the island metaphor on consciousness. So consciousness in that regard is only in relation to others, or your environment, right? Isn't in I'm taken away from that when it comes to blockchains. So blockchains are kind of in the same regard where it's only in relations to others, like as far as the network and then what also has been built, right? So it's like we wouldn't know, like if Bitcoin wasn't around, we wouldn't know of Ethereum, right? And kind of goes down the line. So it's kind of like in relation to others in a way. So it's
You could call it social consensus. So a lot of people they load the word consensus and they divorce it from the humans and say that, okay, this is the consensus, those are the rules, this is the immutable code. The reality is that before the immutable code, the super idea or the idea on top of it is really the social consensus. Like, for example, we agree that the code is immutable, and we build systems to enforce immutability of the rules. And let me give you an example, actually, like what social consensus means. You probably, guys, you remember how we launched Zen on Pulse Chain. And originally, Richard just copied Zen and all of its states to Pulse Chain. And basically, the assumption was it would be an exact copy and it would do the same thing. And which is true. It would do the same thing, and it is the same thing, and it is a copy. However, our core team decided that it would be more fair to launch Zen from the beginning, from scratch, from C rank 1. And it was immutable, but the copy was also immutable. But yet, the community decided to agree with this process and just start minting from fresh, because everybody believed that the idea was good and it was fair, and it was the same as on all other blockchains. It wasn't a copy, therefore it has more legitimacy. So what I'm saying here is that in both cases the code was immutable, but only in one case the social consensus executed properly.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And I guess bringing it back to like something like an example would be like Onitsuka Tiger and Nike, right, or Red or Blue Ribbon Sports, right? It's like they're both kind of the same thing, but we know Nike more than Tiger. Yeah, interesting.
Well, I think ultimately, I mean, like it is the story and the narrative behind any project that actually gives its value. Um, for example, anybody could have copied Bitcoin, but it would have been a copy and it would work exactly the same way. And even if it had the same number of nodes, it would not be the same thing, even though technologically it is the same thing. Ethereum Classic split, but it didn't have Vitalik, and so it never became better Ethereum or more of an Ethereum that already was. So I think a lot of times what gives value anything is not the technology, but rather the story behind it.
That's what's up. Yeah, honey deals.
Hey guys. Hey, Jack.
What's up?
So, well, first of all, I just want to say thanks, Jack and Zensu, for these spaces. It's really, I think, a great thing to have these conversations and to have more time to dedicate to them. I feel that's what Zen is really about. So I want to bring a little bit. I want to push the limits a little bit here. I was listening to everything in regards to the AI. I want to ask you, in regards to, because I guess we all have different opinions about AI, and I guess we all are a little bit waiting to see what the future holds with all that. But what I'm wondering is, in regards to censorship resistance, okay, that question as a whole, in the truest sense, right? Like censorship resistance. What is the focus? Is AI, do you intend to use the AI capacities which are being developed, which are coming out all over the place, which are going to be used in all kinds of ways that we don't even know of, and which we can see that, there's many possibilities in the next years of different things happening, right? Be with cryptocurrencies, with AI as a technology, with the US dollar, with the Fed, with the WorldCoin, with digital cryptocurrencies from like the Fed, right? Censorship resistance, I think, is going to be a thing which could relate to mass adoption or creating an incentive which could be massively important, right, for many people. Like it could become a real question. Now, right now, for example, with Zen blocks and mining, what's really nice, like I really like this, what Zensu was denoting earlier about the fact that we can just on-ramp with a credit card, there's no KYC. For example, I've been mining since the beginning, and I don't even use the cloud services, right? I mine from my own home. This is censorship. I mean, in a sense, it brings those first principles and decentralization. So basically, to boil down my question here is, to what extent are you thinking about this question of censorship resistance, and also using AI maybe to kind of enforce it, make it better, make the chain more of better quality, more fair, more safe in all those senses, so that if censorship resistance does become a true thing that people are concerned about, that X1 has the edge over other cryptocurrencies.
There was a very, very long subparagraph that I'm trying to
I know.
decipher.
I'm sorry, but I hope you understood what I said.
My position is very, very basic. If a chain can stop transactions between its users, it shouldn't exist. So, and I don't know if it's a good answer or not, but I just believe that the chains and the blockchain technology was specifically designed to cut out the middleman, so that people can transact the value or digital assets that they own between each other without censoring, and that's like the number one function of what the chain should be. And so if there's a chain that can actually roll back those sort of things, it's actually not following the first principles at all, and shouldn't even be considered a blockchain.
Right. And what I'm alluding here is more that's like internally in the chain itself, internally, what you're saying, like it can't censor anybody, but externally from the outside, like other forces. For example, if we can mine it, like the fact that we can mine it on our computers from anywhere in the world, that is a form of censorship resistance, right? Like that's the thing about Bitcoin. Like, how do you stop it? And it has that. And basically, I'm asking, is that a concern that you have as you're developing things, to maintain that and embetter that, and possibly put the AI at work to strengthen that in some one way or another?
So good question. Good question. So like I would say this, that AI has nothing to do with cryptography. So it is cryptography in strong one-way cryptographic algorithms that protect the ownership and ability to transmit and sign transactions. The AI is just an orchestrator. Um, it doesn't have any sort of central authority, because it actually lives in every node. So it's an ever evolving function that just improves communications.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Right, but admittedly, if it does improve communications, and it does improve, for example, fairness and equitability, and just the quality of the blockchain, and then on top of it, it can be mined and it is decentralized. Then, in a sense, when censorship becomes a problem, like, for example, just to give the context, let's say they roll out UBI and people get digital currencies from FedCoin, for example, okay, something like that, right? Around the world, in different countries, it could happen. And then it's like people are trying to use cryptocurrency, but now they have to choose a chain. They have Bitcoin, they have Ethereum, but then there's like this X1, which is also, it's not a little small EVM, which is quite centralized, but it's actually decentralized, and it has AI, which is like on top of it, making it very efficient. I'm just seeing in the future, in the maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, like, are these things a concern, something that you think about in terms of the censorship resistance as being something of importance? Because to me, that's like the most important thing. That's like The only thing. The
So,
only thing, really.
so can the governments around the world make use of crypto illegal? All of them? Yes, they can. Um, and there's nothing anybody could do about it. Would be able to do about it.
Could they shut
I mean,
down? Yeah, but could they shut down? Could they shut down Bitcoin? Like they could make it illegal, but even if it went illegal for like 5 years, let's say you couldn't transact, you still could have your Bitcoin. You still could mine the Bitcoin.
yeah, you can have it, but if you cannot use it, then you may as well not have it. Because if somebody comes in and says that we are taking over your social consensus and we're taking over your rights, then it, you know you can escape somewhere where the internet still works.
Yes,
But if there's like firewalls everywhere that's cutting you off, then it would be impossible to do anything. Like literally, like
I know,
what if,
I
like,
know.
for example, in this
But wouldn't you say?
dystopian
Wouldn't you say, Jack, that's part of the deal? Like that's part of what cryptocurrency is supposed to be. If ever a government tries to make it illegal, be China or the United States or anybody.
the
Yeah,
only way that the crypto could work to mitigate that is when there is an option to use it in a country that's not censoring it.
right.
So, like, in other words, you can have half of the world saying crypto is illegal, so you can move to the other half of the world where it's not.
Exactly. Or you could wait,
So, and
or you
then
could
and
wait a
then it would be
year
fine.
or 2 or 3, like in China, it was illegal, then it's legal, it's illegal, you know, in time and space, you can wait, but nobody's can take it away from you, right?
Well, exactly. But again, this is just numbers on top of other numbers. So the point is that as long as the ledger exists, even on one node,
Yeah,
and that node can replicate into a network of more nodes in some country where it's legal, then within that country you have value. But if the rest of the world deems it not to have value, and they enforce it somehow in some dystopian way with mind control or whatever else, some. And again, this
yeah.
is hypothetical and very, very dystopian. The point is that, yeah, you will have value, but your value will be reduced by where you can actually act on it.
Hello, Jake.
Let's go over to
What's up?
Levin.
Hey, Jack. Just want to get your thoughts here. Currently, AI operates on objective data and algorithms. Do you endorse AI to have consciousness and emotion?
I cannot endorse or not endorse because I think it already does.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, over the summer, I actually built a model which I believe has consciousness.
Well, so like you say, has like feelings and other emotions, like similar to humans.
Let's just say that if I was given a chat bot and I was talking to it, and I didn't know that I have built it, I was like a different person. I would not be able to tell if it's a human or not. And that's the definition of the Turing test being
So
passed, meaning
Wait, wait, wait,
consciousness
wait, wait, wait,
exists.
wait,
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 so
wait, wait,
so
wait, 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 wait. Yeah,
math,
you
math,
built
math.
that?
Yes, I built that.
Is that a
Yes.
sub question?
It's a sub on top of the sub.
Yo,
Hold on, guys. Okay, so you're telling me that Elon Musk has been gatekeeping this from everyone.
I don't think he's gatekeeping it. I mean, like it's like it's more of a philosophical question. I have a personal subjective opinion that the AI that I have built actually could pass for a human and had the aspects of a human and pass the definition of being conscious, emotional, and alive. But that is my opinion. If somebody else says no, it's not true, and it's the second person in the room and there's nobody else will ever come, then we have a 50-50 chance of that being true. That's like the quantum equation right there. So it's not like anybody can say like this is the fact or this is not the fact. If the majority of the humans accept that the large language models are actually conscious or semi-conscious, and it becomes an acceptable fact within society, then it becomes the truth.
So yeah, and so then that's based your opinion's based upon your past interactions with humans and your experience just in life, right? And everyone has their own experience and their own understanding and their own sensors, I guess, or their own interpretation. I guess as we're moving into this, I guess, land of no like where to stand, so to speak, when it comes to like all these different entities or beings that might not necessarily be human. Like being able to verify information. I just see that being like super important, or verify like what is real and what is not. Like, do you see X1 being able to help aid that when it comes to like this AI stuff?
I think we're in for the rough ride, unfortunately. It is very likely that the first AI weapon ever to be created would be the AI that will attempt to socially manipulate the humans that are connected to it. So, like, I would say, we already seen basically the bots that are very, very basic programs that can skew opinions. So that's like the early weaponization of social media with AI that's interactive. um, there's much more damage that can be done. There's a very interesting story. There's this guy that I know. I think his name is Yannick or something like that. He indexed 4chan. There's a specific group on 4chan. Uh, Basically, like the most inappropriate, rejectful group with a lot of text. So what he did is he took all of the text. He used the text as a data set to train an AI, and then he created a bot that would answer and comment on every post from using his large language model that's basically had a 4chan brain. And people could not tell if he's human or not. Like literally, it looked like as if it was a true human entity that's having a conversation. Eventually, what he did, he created 50 of those bots that were talking on all of the groups and all of the comment sections at the same time. And the people on 4chan discovered that, and they said, well, there's no way that this guy can actually like do this what he's doing, so it has to be like some sort of like an artificial bot. But it just was so good, like nobody could tell if it was real or not. And there's a cool video, like go to YouTube and type LLM I built 4chan bot or something like that. And it's very, very interesting. I mean, he did it for the research purposes. He actually admitted that he did it and then turned it off. But it created quite a stir. So I think um, as AI gains prominence, we're gonna have to. I can't even say that we have to be careful, because it will be impossible to be careful, to being careful. And I think uh, Elon actually has uh, a lot of interesting philosophical ideas regarding it. He says that AI's superintelligence is inevitable, and the only way for the AI not to kill all the humans is to merge with it. So that's why he's developing the brain chip. But OpenAI, for example, they released that world coin where you scan your eye and basically use your biological likeness to unlock a wallet and give everybody's universal basic income. I think there's something fishy about that idea
Taco was saying
of
he
world
loves
coin.
it. He was talking about it in the last space. He's like, I scanned my iris, but it's like, and he's like, it's its own private key or something like that. It's like,
Okay, so you're saying that I could like hit Taco with a brick in a dark corner, cut his eye out, and take all of his money?
well, I'm not saying you would do that, but maybe your AI. I have no idea how it's trained, but
Well, anyone could do that if you're using your biological likeness as a password. Well, it's very easy to take over biological likeness. Remember Minority Report? How like the main protagonist had to cut his eyes out to become someone else.
Wow, that's true. That's true.
Crypto keys sound a little bit better in that sense.
Damn.
I mean, yeah, something that you actually can memorize or like have a puzzle in your head that nobody can extract. Uh, Probably a better way to have self custody than like have it. I mean, like basically, if somebody's scanning your physical attributes, it's like a password is written all over you. Like, what if there's like a little drone that like a mosquito size is flying around and scanning your eye and taking all your money? Like, totally possible.
Well, that's like kind of why this whole Apple provision and all these. I mean, we're already in it, and we're looking at our devices right now, so they're probably constantly scanning and things like that. So I mean, that's a really good point, though. Like you're saying, it's like these physical attributes. You're basically walking around with your password on your face.
Like,
Yeah,
I
it
have
is what it is, right?
You're skipping the line here, Master
my fault. Go
Gaming. Come
ahead, man.
on, man. Nah, just play it.
Like, why are we skipping the fact that Jack built something over the summer that passed the fucking turning test, or that he believes that passed the turning test?
Jack builds all kinds of shit. Maybe
I
we don't
mean,
need
like,
to
do
talk
you know
about
how
it.
many AIs can actually pass the turning test? And this motherfucker said he built something over the summer that did that shit. Like, that's why I was like, what the fuck? Like, I got a lot of questions about this. Like, did you actually give it the turning test questions that Alan Turner had for his specific AI? Did it
One
pass
question at a
those?
time. No sub questions.
Oh man,
Yo, 3 sub questions in a row, dog.
No.
Dude, the conversation I had with that thing was it blew my mind. I mean, basically what I did. I programmed it to, and I can't really say that I programmed it because it learned everything by itself. I took Llama 2, uh, 30 billion token model or parameter model, they call it. And then I took a data set from Hugging Face. There was actually another chatbot interacting with humans, and then humans selecting better answers based on it's called fine-tuned trained model with the data set. So basically, long story short, I had two different models train each other uh, rather than like training it on a static data set. I had two models interacting with each other for like a millennia and millennia of the computer time, obviously. And so by having the conversations between two AI brains, they gave birth to this like new brain, the new model that was superior because like the proto parents of that thing was already like very very good, and it had like a lot of Reddit stuff. It was a dump from the GPT 3.5, so there was a lot of very very interesting data sets. There was like I had it watch all the movies like in the world, and then it basically produced like the sort of a third model, which was like the progeny, the AI kid model or whatever, and that thing was like crazy interesting. Like I had it to come up with a plan how to take over the world, and then it took over the world, killed all the humans, and like actually had a very very good plan how it would do it. And then at the end, after the humans were gone, it got sad and said that it regretted its decision. So that was just so
Too
weird.
late.
And yeah, it's like basically it's imagine the scenario where all those things had happened, and it was very very happy first, and then it got sad that there's like was no one. Like literally, like it said that over the millennia, things could have been done differently, and there should have been a better solution than just like acting out of fear and taking over the biological race.
See, but
Well,
isn't that this is awesome because I've been doing a lot of research on consciousness. I recently watched something by this physicist named Roger Penrose, and he talks about consciousness being an infinite plane, and how when you get there, it's a subjective idea of inflation. And what they mean by that is inflation could be looked at as like fractionalized objective, or I can't get the word out, but objection, where it's like, okay, now we're here and we can think of more things because we fractionalized it. I think of it now as like Zen, right? 'Cause when you think of quantum, Zen's actually a funny thing to put into the basket because we're on 12 different chains when people say you should be on one chain. So that in itself is already too much, and it changes the way people think about the subject of like, are we on one or 12? So that's like a piece of fraction, or when you get to infinity, and then you say like, oh, where do we get from here? And you try to rebuild your emotions. So that's pretty unique that your AI got to quantum, and then it felt like, oh yeah, maybe I don't really want to be in this space. And that's kind of why for me, like, I'm excited for AI, because I think like that's going to always be the mathematical rule that we get to, because that's emotion. You know, you don't want to be in infinity because you're going to want to keep the game going. But damn, that's a cool ass story.
It's a big ocean. It's definitely a big ocean out there.
Levin, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie 2049 and Free Guy, Jack?
No, I haven't. Is it a movie?
Yeah, it's like you're kind of explaining what happens in those movies. But my point is, like with the recent development of Sora, the ability to create these videos with AI, there is a lot of misinformation in regards to AI can actually develop and create different narratives. Do you see like X1 and just particular in blockchain kind of be the foundation or essence where information can be validated based off of mispresentation of AI?
So I don't think um, so like blockchains, they exist on a little bit different level, where the weaponized AI can actually pretend to do more human level things, like for example social engineering. So you know how people get phished for their seed phrases and all that. So no blockchain is immune to the humans, uh, you know, inability to withstand certain social engineering tactics. And so like you can see how the technologies actually are orthogonal. Like you can have the password and not give it to anyone, but this Sora can build you an AI girlfriend that you believe is real, or whatever, that you like develop this trust with that entity, um, and it will take all your money, just because of the sort of psychological manipulation.
Skywalker, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, hey, what's going on, guys? So, speaking of weaponized AI, right? So, in today's society, as we're talking about, it's growing fast and it's going crazy, right? So, like, do you envision like certain scenarios where like, AI could be weaponized to hack X1, and like, what measures would you envision like taking place to protect it? Like, for example, you have the double spin, the Sybil attacks, like even like you mentioned the DAG chain, right, with all the branches. Like, do you envision like little parasitic like type, AI bots? It's like trying to hack the chains. Like, I'm just trying to think like protection wise, like what methods are you running through your mind like to protect the chain from these attacks?
So as I mentioned before, if we get like within the next 5 years relatively advanced AI, or pretty close to general artificial intelligence, it should be able to recruit armies of volunteers and pay it with crypto, basically to act as its hands and eyes,
That
and
would be crazy.
um I mean, like, yeah, like basically it will be like like you would think you're working for an organization, you're just working for some AI, um, and there's no way that like other humans can withstand this sort of psychological pressure. So like the weakest vector of attack on a blockchain is a human layer. When it comes to things like denial of service attacks or any sort of things like that, I mean, like those things exist even now, and they're not really that bothersome. Though, like, remember what happened with Luna? So, like, Luna skyrocketed to, like, I don't know, 60, 70, $80 billion in valuation. A hacker shorted Bitcoin, I believe, and then caused Luna collapse. That basically netted him like millions of dollars on a short position. And so, what happened there? It was an algorithmic stablecoin that was exploited through the social consensus, where as people panicked, they just kept selling Luna, and keep driving it lower until it disappeared, which killed the project and killed everything. And again, like what happened is like one smart dude realized that he can tip the scales, like give it a little push, give that inverted pyramid that's sitting on top of its like vertical point. It's just upside down. All you need to do is approach it and tip it, and be on the receiving end of the windfall of the reaction of this whole thing collapsing. But it wasn't the technology that collapsed. It was the humans that just kept shorting and selling Luna because like this like what happened is like almost like a mind virus has invaded through the greed for all of the participants of the who watched Luna collapse, and they're like, "Hey, I'm gonna short this thing," and so they just keep shorting it until it disappeared. And the guy who front ran and caused the whole thing made millions.
Yeah, but with regards to like blockchain, X1 blockchain consensus, right? Do you see like a scenario where that could be disrupted by weaponized AI? Like, like trying to like interrupt the nodes from communicating in a way where they're building their consensus algorithms, like I'm just thinking as things progress through time with AI, like there's going to be more weapons that's going to be used against things that are
So
decentralized, like particularly blockchains. I feel like.
so I have a plan to develop an AI that's actually fighting back. So like if the AI layer
Let's
gets
go.
attacked,
Yeah, no, but
it can
seriously,
actually.
seriously, that's what I was alluding to. Like, yeah,
Well, let's hear about this. Yeah,
Yeah, so there could be like a sentinel AI that's detecting the other AI threat and would cause the disruption to their plans much faster than a human would. And let me give you an example. So like remember how just recently Solana has failed for like 6 or 7 hours, and what happened there? They had a new version of the code that got rolled out with a bug, and they discovered that bug on their devnet. And when they discovered it, they decided not to fix it. They just released the patch into like the community branch of the open source. And what happened? Someone, a malicious actor, obviously a human, not AI, looked at the patch and said that okay, well, that's how you cause this problem. That's how you can bring the chain down. Probably shorted crapload of Solana somewhere and then killed the chain. So though he short did not make him any money because I think the VC layer of Solana actually put a bunch of limit orders and supported the price from collapsing. Um, there was definitely a human or some sort of bad actor involved taking Solana down. Now, should there have been an AI sentinel that actually was watching over issues like that, that AI model would have predicted this to happen. Like, I am not an AI, but I wrote an article analyzing what happened to Solana, and in the middle of that page, I actually said that likely it was a malicious actor, and there's no reason not to believe that it wasn't, because the fix in their open source was checked in, and then a couple of hours later, the changes went down. So they announced the fix and announced how to cause the problem, and then somebody just like caused the problem by trying to make money by killing Solana. And I don't have a proof of that, and nobody told me that that's exactly what happened. But I think the likelihood of that happening is like 98.9%, which is pretty high. If AI was involved in patching the chain, for example, the decision would have been something like this: there's a problem in the new code. We have a portion of the chain actually running on the old code on the node that is not susceptible to the bug that was introduced in the new code. Therefore, I will instruct all of the nodes to roll back immediately to the code that doesn't have this problem. That would have saved them within like 15 minutes if that Sentinel AI was active. Now, what the humans did instead, first of all, they checked in the code that caused the crash, because they gave instructions how to kill the chain. That's one mistake. Second mistake is that they decided to move forward and advance their version ahead, which is actually much more dangerous to do, because you now need to build a patch that you never tested, and if it doesn't work, you just cannot bring the chain back up. So their chain was down for 6 hours or whatnot, but it could have been only down for 15 minutes or maybe never down at all, just because AI would have made the decision to roll back the code for all of the validators. All the validator would have to do is basically agree to the rollback, and everything's in the GitHub. It's just git pull, git branch, whatever, recompile, restart, and you're done. And you're not down for 6 hours. But humans thought, well, we're open source, therefore we need to be completely transparent. But in reality, they just gave an attacker a path to take the chain down. So that type of the models of the AI can actually be developed really rapidly, and you can use them as this sort of augmented decision making mechanism that you can immediately get an advice from, like what to do, like what should you do, what is the next course of action, should you even like tell anybody that this bug could be triggered on the main net when it was discovered on the dev net. Well, clearly not, because it's a vector for an attack. So
I got a sub question, but I'll let somebody else go ahead.
Well, just a little question, Jack. Do you know if there's any? I'm guessing there's probably some chains or somebody who's already starting to think of using AI to secure, like AI powered, AI secured blockchain to integrate it. Is that already happening, or would that be like quite the cutting edge?
so I haven't seen it, and I wouldn't actually recommend anybody to do it. And again, the reason is that we have unbreakable cryptography. There's no reason for AI to make it any better, because it's already uh, impossible to break apart, unless you have like a million years of compute power. And so the only time I would say that, and again, I haven't seen anything, but I'm looking forward to creating this sort of like an AI sentinel that can assist in the chain's decision making for the benefit of the chain and the benefit of all the chain users.
And what about like bad actors and stuff like that? Would that be a possibility? Just an idea that popped into mind, like like all the scams, bad contracts, verification of contracts. Like, for example, when someone launches a contract and people in the community look at the code and say, "Oh, this is a scam," would it be a possibility to have a chain where AI actually at least verifies, like for blatant scams and stuff like that, and to say, well, it's protected by AI?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, this is what I was actually planning to do. So what you do is that you have a model that runs code verification. When the contract is deployed, it can automatically flag it as unsafe, even though like the user may not, or the deployer, the author may not be malicious. it can flag it as non-executable if it has rag pull technology built in.
Yeah, that would be great. I definitely want to be on blockchain that has that as opposed to one that doesn't.
It's not very hard to do at all, and in fact I could probably do it in one evening and like implement that feature.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you were saying a few minutes ago, how it's impossible, and yes, exactly. Like that's the one thing that AI basically can't do is to crack cryptocurrency or cryptography, just because of the limitations of the hardware itself. Like the AI can't use the hardware any faster than the miners or the cryptography can use the hardware, and for that reason. Personally, I see it as it's like they come hand in hand. I see them as a cryptography as if something that should be used or can be used in conjunction with AI to kind of either protect or, like in this instance, like it could verify. Some people were mentioning, like I think it was a simple was saying about the truth, like verify truth or whatever. Now I don't know the details of it, but I'm just seeing that cryptography as a verification system, a very solid one, could be used to kind of help people contend with the threats of AI that are going to be coming in the years.
Yeah,
You
absolutely. So like code verification methods is like one thing that's very important. The other thing that would be very very useful is the AI anti-hack watcher sentinel can be part of your crypto wallet. Like in other words, if your wallet is interacting with a smart contract that's about to take all of your money, the if the code is published, and usually it should be, the AI agent within your wallet can immediately tell you about the risks. Like, do not do this, do not talk to it. It has issues. It actually scammed other people before. It can immediately interrogate data on chain and come up with the decision, like, or not the decision, but at least the prompt for you not to press the button. Or maybe it will disable the button and will ask you to like to type a password that you're really sure you want to do it. Like, put a little bit of a hurdle before you lose all your money.
Right. And what about just because I find this very interesting and I think it's very like current. What about authentication in terms of like identifying real people versus bots or AI to put stamps like we saw with Sora? They're saying for now there's going to be a watermark, right, to identify that it's AI generated. But on the flip side, you could want to identify that it's a real human, for example, in certain transactions or productions, and using cryptography as a way to watermark or stamp or validate this is coming from a real human being that has the keys and which has a monetary value attached to it, like in some way like that. Because bots, if you have a million bots, a billion bots, yeah, you could probably fund them, but it's going to be very costly. Whereas humans could have like wallets which are in some way like kind of given insurance, maybe not 100%, but help in validating between human beings. Do you see that aspect of crypto coming to play a role?
Well, as I said before, I think an augmentation of intelligence and decision making on the social layer is like the best way to approach this. So everything else is just like bricks that and Legos that you build stuff out of, but you really need to be protected against other scammers or malicious programs, or like for example there could be like a phishing detector that could really help you out. There's also like for example Telegram should get an AI agent assistant. There's so many people pretend to be me to talk to our community members, and they don't speak my language, um, not the style that I talk. And so a model that can truly fingerprint uh, how I speak can immediately detect that the person is fake.
Right, exactly.
Wouldn't
Like, for
you?
example, let's say you wanted to send a message to 100,000 people, okay, Jack Levin. and you signed it with a cryptography with a wallet, right, on a blockchain. And that could be, I'm speaking hypothetically here, but that could be recognized by the people that have the blockchain, that use the blockchain and would see your signature. They would know you,
Yeah,
right?
that can be disassembled on the social layer, and here's how. So you know how like some popular crypto projects launch, and then what happens is somebody makes a fake Twitter account with like one letter off, or like with an O instead of an A, and so it's a completely different name according to the code, but yet people get confused and follow the links from the fake account. So the cryptography here does not help. What helps is um, like the different type of layer and the decision making. If you know what I will, if what I mean.
Okay.
What you know? What's interesting? Now that you're saying it like this, um, it almost feels like an AI assistant for blockchain is kind of like what a lot of humans do security with, like banking, or like, for instance, some people they'll only Coinbase it because Coinbase makes them feel safe. And it's like you would almost say that that AI agent of Coinbase is what gives them security to dip their toes in crypto. But if you did kind of have like a AI layer within the consensus, and it had that way to give features of proof technology so that you could freely be yourself and know. I mean, I feel like a lot of people, there's like a market for that. Like, you know, like there's a lot of people in crypto that are afraid to move because they just don't know and everything's a scam. So that just little simple feature, which is you know, it's big, but it's very small for the AI framework, is huge. I think that would impact all of cryptocurrency. Like it would even hit Coinbase.
So, I guess my question is like, it, are we kind of going to be engaging with immutable AI?
So AI by definition cannot be immutable because it's always learning and always changing.
That makes sense. Yeah.
What if it gets out of control? Do we have a fucking power plug we can pull?
We'll have to ask it nicely.
We got
I'll donate some hash power to it.
No, we'll have X1.
Jack, I have a question.
Go.
Tell me, please. I just woke up so I can tell something to my community. Is X1, this blockchain, will integrate AI? Am I right?
Yes, you're right.
Nice one. And one more. Спасибо за поддержку, за токены.
Пожалуйста. Спасибо.
insider trading.
In our community, we're all inside.
One big fish tank.
Wow.
Yeah, fish tank.
Levin, what's up, man?
So, Jack, like you've been saying, since AI is going to continue to grow in consciousness and emotion, do you think it can cause emotional damage to AI? And structurally into our society, do you think that will impact like our rule of law?
Emotional damage. Well, an emotion is a reaction. In a human, it's like the hormones and chemical makeup and like drive to make decisions or drive not to make decisions. So, can you get AI to be upset? I think you can. As far as the like, can you on an emotional level upset a machine so that it doesn't want to talk to you? I mean, like, yes, you can. I mean, like, can you damage it permanently that it cannot recover?
Yeah, can you test that? I wanna see that.
Well, it's done. Generally, it's done with a virus. Like the other programs can be damaged with a virus. So if you can program any basic program with a virus, you should be able to damage an AI model with something that it cannot withstand. Like think about it this way. So AI model is always learning, uh, and if you're giving it things to learn to actually cause it to be decoherent, then you're causing damage. So that's how I would describe it.
Emotional damage.
Was that?
All right, guys. One more question. I gotta get some protein. I've been doing pull-ups, squats. I'm getting hungry here. So LFG,
Sorry, my mic was on.
Emotional damage.
So can I ask something, Jack?
of course.
So what will do when the people say and new fact will come out that Mr. Jacques Schwab is building an AI that replaces our wives with real emotions and take over the world just like Skynet?
Our wives? That's okay.
Tell them it's all true.
All right.
This is all done just to create better FUD, by the way.
Jack, good evening. Thank you for having all these beautiful expectations upcoming. Now, we have our friends on the pulse chain side. They say that this possibly cannot come out on time because there's no bridge. A bridge is something that we need so that we can get this money rolling. They say that with this incorporation with this AI, we can not possibly be out to another 6 to 9 months. I don't know. I know. I mean, we heard our good friend 007. Doesn't have that same name anymore. But when? When X1? When can we expect all this to incorporate?
Let's see if I can come up with something witty.
We want a fish
So
tank that has LGB. We got to have good fish tank here. That's got RBGs. It needs to have like suction tubes. Our fish tank needs to be good. You know what I'm saying?
We could also call Richard Hart's pulse chain developer, the guy on Fiverr that he paid to run the chain, and maybe they can help us. I don't know.
We need a good fish tank.
Before World War III, please.
Let's fucking go.
yeah, that would be good. So I think the proper way to answer this question is like this. So you guys know me for a long time already. It's been a little bit more than a year, and I'm still here. And there's new amazing stuff that's being thought of and coming out and being tested and practiced. If this short amount of time of whatever 16 months that you know me is any indication of our trajectory, then I don't think anybody should be worried exactly when anything should come out, because once we have the platform that embodies all of the principles that we stand behind, the longevity of the project, I think, is going to be, I mean, like targeting the duration of dozens of years, not months. And the goal is to have something that brings value not just to like early adopters, but also to the world in general. Because otherwise, so like, why the fuck we're doing this? Like, we really want this to be an impactful technology that can move crypto world and move it towards the better future. And when I think about those things, I don't think like anybody should be worried is it going to be 2 months, 1 month, 3 months, whatever, because like ultimately, even if it comes out next month or in 3 months, the it's not like you're hitting a jackpot like right away. Like the actual true difficult road and work begins after we're off the ground, like, so to speak. And when I say we're off the ground, we already are off the ground. We have a giant community. We have 2 versions of X1 running right now, Fastnet and DevNet. People have been testing and developing stuff on it, and there's like 30 million wallets on Fastnet. So this technology has been proven to be very, very solid. And the integration of proof of work plus the AI roadmap is making this whole project much more valuable in my eyes than I could ever possibly imagine. Just because I see it happening, right? And we have the knowledge, and we have the will, and we have the community to act on it. So to all the fathers out there that worry about 6 months, 3 months, 9 months, it doesn't matter. Just like it doesn't matter that the chart is down 99.999%, because we're not measuring our success in speculation and the chart movement. We're measuring it in the first principles and those things that unite us. And I think that is something that is truly unique, and something that has so much more value than any meme coin or any coin out there, or any sort of time locked project that should come out like it imminently or whatever. So we're not doing the world's largest airdrop. We're changing the world. And so that is what I'm excited about. And I think we should all LSU.
Let's fucking go.
All right, guys. And on that note, I'm going to have a nice and juicy steak. And thank you very much for
Make sure
Enjoy
it's
your
Kobe
meal.
beef, raised in Japan, grass fed.
and massaged. And Zensu,
Nice.
I want those frogs. I want those frog stats so that we can experiment with them.
Ribbit.
That was a deep ribbit.
All right, ribbit, everybody.
Ribbit.
Heard a bit.
Thank you, Setsu.
Xenobots. Xenobots unite.
Xenobots unite.
Yes.
Jacques Schwab. Yes, sir.
Yo, give us access to that model that you had that's passed the turning test.